"Where the conductor?" someone shouted. The driver tilted his head slightly, still smiling. "You don't reach where he's supposed to reach." The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Fear shifted into panic. A man rushed forward, trying to pull the door open. It didn't budge. Locked from outside. People began shouting over one another now. "Open this door. We no wan stay here. I go break am." The baby that had cried earlier started wailing loudly, the sound echoing strangely as if the bus itself didn't want to carry noise anymore. Chike's chest tightened. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic wouldn't help. The bus was supposed to reach Lagos before midnight. That was the promise the conductor kept shouting at the park in Lokoja, slapping the side of the old yellow coaster like it was a faithful animal. "Last trip, straight to Lagos, no story. If you enter now, you go reach before 12. People believed him because they wanted to. The evening sky was already turning dark, and everybody at the park looked tired in the same way. Tired of delays, tired of bad roads, tired of being stranded. Lagos was calling. Home was calling. Work was calling. Hunger was calling. And when you hear those calls in Nigeria, you don't argue with time, you rush it. That's how Chike entered the bus. He wasn't rushing because he was excited. He was rushing because he was scared. 2 hours earlier, he had been standing in front of his aunt's compound in Lokoja, arguing with his cousin about a small debt that suddenly became a big insult. Voices rose, neighbors gathered, somebody pushed somebody, somebody picked up a bottle. Chike saw the way people's eyes changed when anger took over, and he remembered the last time a small fight turned into a burial. He didn't wait for the fight to choose a victim. He packed his small bag, took the little cash he had, and left. Lagos first, peace later. At the park, the bus looked like it had seen too many years. One headlight was dimmer than the other, the tires were bald, the body had scratches like scars. The driver, a thick-necked man with sleepy eyes, sat behind the wheel chewing something. He didn't look like someone that valued life, but the bus was moving, and that was enough. Chike squeezed into a seat near the middle, beside a woman clutching a cooler like it was her child. Across them sat 2 boys in matching black hoodies, laughing too loudly at nothing. At the back, a man in suit trousers and a rumpled white shirt kept checking his wristwatch like he was in a race with God. The conductor, a slim man with a sharp nose and a voice that could cut metal, collected money while insulting everyone at the same time. "Madam, shift nah, so you won't sit like queen? This is Costa, no be your palo." People laughed because that's what Nigerians do when someone is rude in a familiar way. It made them feel normal. It made them feel safe. Chike rested his head on the seat and told himself this was just a bus ride. Just road, just night, just Lagos. The bus finally pulled out of the park at exactly 7:13 p.m. The sky already bruised purple. The conductor slammed the door, banged the side twice and shouted, "Lagos, Lagos, Lagos," with a go. The bus joined the highway, the engine groaning like an old man getting up from the floor. For the first 30 minutes, everything felt ordinary. The road stretched long and straight. The last orange of sunset disappeared behind the hills. Street lights became fewer. The world outside the windows turned into darkness with occasional flashes. Another bus, a trailer, a roadside fire, a village sign, a hawker's torch. Inside, the bus was a mix of smells: sweat, perfume, fried akara, menthol, and that stubborn scent of old seat foam that never truly leaves a coaster. People settled into their own worlds. Some began to doze, some chatted softly, some stared into nothing, counting their private problems. Chike tried to relax. He told himself, if I can just reach Lagos tonight, everything will calm down. Then the first strange thing happened. It was small, so small that Chike almost ignored it. The woman beside him, the one with the cooler, tried to make a phone call. She lifted her phone, pressed it to her ear and frowned. "No network," she muttered. She lowered it, tapped her screen and tried again. Her eyebrows tightened. Across them, the man in the rumpled shirt was already scrolling through something, his face lit by his screen. The 2 hoodie boys were watching a video, laughing, slapping each other's knees. So there was network. Chike looked at the woman's phone screen from the corner of his eye. 1 bar, then 0, then searching. She turned the phone off and on again. Still nothing. She sighed, hugging her cooler tighter, and stared out into the dark like she was looking for an answer outside. Chike shrugged it off. Maybe her line was bad. Maybe her SIM was old. Maybe the network was doing its Nigeria thing. But then, Chike tried his own phone, not because he needed to call anyone, just to check, just to be sure. No network. Not one bar. He lifted his head, confused. He looked around the bus again. Some people were pressing their phones like they were praying into them. Others were chatting on calls, laughing, scrolling, normal. Chike's throat tightened slightly. He tried airplane mode. He tried restarting. He tried switching between SIMs. Nothing. The conductor moved down the aisle, collecting the last payments. Chike touched his arm lightly. "Bros, my phone no get network." The conductor didn't even stop walking. "Na your village SIM be that," he said, and people nearby chuckled. Chike forced a weak smile, but the joke didn't land inside him. Because it wasn't just him and the woman with the cooler anymore. A young girl 2 seats ahead was also whispering, "My data no dey work." A man near the back complained, "I no fit call my wife." But at the same time, some passengers were still online, still on calls, still normal, like the bus was splitting them into 2 groups. Chike looked out the window. The road had gotten darker. The traffic had reduced. It felt like they were driving into a place where the world was thinner, where sound didn't travel far. And then the driver took a turn. It wasn't a big turn, just a slight deviation off the main highway. But Chike noticed because he had taken this route before. This wasn't a normal Lagos route. He leaned forward, peering between the seats toward the front. The driver's eyes stayed fixed ahead. His face didn't change. The conductor sat near the door now, quiet for the first time since they left the park. Chike cleared his throat. "Oga driver," someone called from the back. "This road no be express." No answer. The bus continued. A woman somewhere said, "Maybe he dey avoid traffic." Another man replied, "Traffic for where? Night don't fall." The driver still didn't speak. The conductor finally looked back and smiled, but it wasn't his earlier loud, joking smile. This one was small and tight. "No worry, na shortcut. If we follow express, we go delay. We know road." His voice was calm. Too calm. Chike's stomach rolled slightly. He tried to tell himself he was overthinking. Nigerians take shortcuts every day. Drivers do this all the time. But the darkness outside didn't feel like normal darkness. It was the kind of darkness that swallowed the edges of your mind. Even the trees looked wrong. Too tall, too crowded, like they were leaning toward the road to listen. The bus drove for another 15 minutes, and the road started to look less like a highway and more like a stretched-out village road pretending to be important. Potholes appeared. The bus bounced and rattled. Someone's bag fell. A baby woke up crying. And then, suddenly, everything went quiet. Not quiet like people stopped talking. Quiet like the world held its breath. The engine sound reduced, like it was being wrapped in cotton. The outside air looked heavy. Even the baby's cry softened into a weak whimper, like the sound couldn't push through. Chike sat up straight. He looked at the passengers. Many of them had noticed it too. Eyes darted around. People adjusted their sitting positions. Somebody laughed nervously, then stopped because the laughter sounded strange inside the quiet. The bus passed a signboard on the roadside. Chike tried to read it, but the headlight flickered and the sign flashed by like a warning. He caught only 2 words, dash welcome and dash Lagos. But the place didn't look like any part of Lagos Chike knew. Then the bus began to slow down. At first, it seemed like the driver was avoiding potholes, but the bus kept slowing and slowing until it was almost crawling. "Why will they slow?" one of the hoodie boys asked, his voice suddenly smaller. The driver didn't answer. The conductor stood up, bracing himself against the shaking bus and said, "Everybody calm down." That was when fear truly entered Chike's chest. because nobody had shouted, nobody had fought, nobody had panicked yet. So why was the conductor telling them to calm down? The bus rolled forward slowly, and then they saw it. Ahead on the road, there was another bus. The same yellow color, same shape, same scratches. It was parked sideways, blocking part of the road like it had been abandoned in a hurry. Its headlights were on, but the beams didn't spread properly. They just sat in the air like two dull eyes staring into the darkness. People began to murmur. Accident? Maybe breakdown. Why them park like that? The driver brought their bus to a stop, engine still running low. The conductor grabbed a torch and opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Not normal night air. This air felt like it had been stored in a deep freezer. Chike felt it on his skin immediately. The hairs on his arms rose. The conductor stepped down and shone his torch toward the other bus. The light trembled in his hand, even though his face tried to stay firm. He walked toward the abandoned bus. The passengers leaned forward, craning their necks, trying to see. Some stood up in the aisle. The woman beside Chike whispered, "Jesus." Chike's phone vibrated suddenly. His heart jumped. He snatched it quickly, hoping, praying it was network coming back. But the screen didn't show a call. It showed something else. A notification. No sender name, no number, just one line appearing like a text message without a source. "Don't come out." Chike stared at it. His mouth went dry. He looked around, confused, trying to see if anyone else got it. The young girl ahead gasped softly and covered her mouth, looking down at her own phone. The man at the back whispered, "Ah, what is this?" The hoodie boys stopped laughing completely. One of them slowly brought out his phone, his eyes wide. Chike's heart began to hammer. Outside, the conductor reached the abandoned bus and tried to open its door. It creaked, then swung open too easily. The torchlight went inside. The conductor froze. He didn't move. For 3 long seconds, he stood there like a statue, staring into the other bus. Then he turned his head slowly toward their bus. And when the torchlight hit his face, Chike saw something that made his blood run cold. The conductor's eyes were wet, not with sweat, with tears. He lifted his free hand and made a small, desperate gesture. It wasn't a wave. It wasn't a come. It was a warning, a silent, shaking warning that looked like begging. Then from inside the abandoned bus, a voice spoke. Low, rough, too close. It said only 2 words, "Next bus." And the conductor's torch went out, instantly, as if something had pinched the light itself. The darkness swallowed him, and the door of their bus slammed shut by itself. Chike grabbed the seat in front of him, breathing fast. Around him, people started to panic now, real panic, the kind that turns grown adults into children. But the driver still didn't move. He kept both hands on the steering wheel. His head stayed forward, and his lips curved into a slow smile, like a man who had been waiting for this moment. Then he spoke for the first time since they left the park. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "We don't reach," and the engine died. Nobody moved when the engine died. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It felt thick, like something alive had wrapped itself around the bus and was squeezing gently, patiently, waiting to see who would break first. Chike's fingers tightened around the back of the seat in front of him. His eyes darted toward the door where the conductor had disappeared into darkness. He expected the man to come running back, shouting, insulting everyone like before. But the conductor did not return. Only the cold air remained. Someone at the back screamed, "Driver, start the bus." Another voice followed immediately, trembling. "This place no good. Abeg, make we go." The driver didn't respond. He kept smiling faintly, his hands resting loosely on the wheel, as though he had finally reached the destination he always wanted. Outside, the abandoned bus sat quietly, its headlights dimming little by little until they faded completely, leaving nothing but a dark shape against darker trees. Inside Chike's bus, phones began lighting up one after another. Not with network, with the same message, "Don't come out." Gas filled the air. The woman beside Chike clutched her cooler so tightly the plastic creaked. "Who sent them?" she whispered, voice shaking. Nobody answered. The young girl ahead began to cry softly. The hoodie boy stopped pretending to be brave. One of them leaned forward and whispered, "Guy, Something not correct. Chike swallowed hard. His mind raced. He remembered the shortcut, the strange quiet, the conductor's tears. The driver suddenly spoke again, calm as ever. "Everybody relax," he said. "This na normal stop." Normal? The word felt like a lie heavy enough to crush bones. "Where the conductor?" someone shouted. The driver tilted his head slightly, still smiling. "He don't reach where he's supposed reach." The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Fear shifted into panic. A man rushed forward, trying to pull the door open. It didn't budge. Locked from outside. People began shouting over one another now. "Open this door. We no want stay here. I go break am." The baby that had cried earlier started wailing loudly, the sound echoing strangely as if the bus itself didn't want to carry noise anymore. Chike's chest tightened. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic wouldn't help. Panic would make him blind. He looked outside through the window. At first, he saw nothing. Then, movement. Shapes. Figures standing between the trees, barely visible, like shadows that forgot to disappear. They weren't rushing toward the bus. They were waiting, watching. The driver's smile widened slightly. "This road," he said softly, "every bus get turn." His words slid into Chike's ears like ice. Before anyone could respond, a heavy knock landed on the side of the bus. Bang! Everyone froze. Another knock. Bang! Not loud, not angry, just patient. Chike turned toward the window. A face appeared close to the glass. A man. But something about him felt wrong. His skin looked pale under the weak interior light, and his eyes seemed too still, like someone had painted them on. He tapped the glass gently with one finger. Tap, tap, tap. The young girl screamed. People pushed backward, climbing over seats, trying to get away from the windows. More faces appeared now outside. Men, women. Some looked tired, some looked empty. Some looked like ordinary travelers who had lost something important a long time ago. None of them smiled. The driver chuckled softly. "Next boss," he whispered. The words made Chike's stomach twist violently. Suddenly, the front door of the bus creaked open. Not because anyone touched it. It opened slowly, on its own. Cold air rushed in again, stronger this time, carrying a smell of damp earth and rust. One of the shadowy figures stepped inside. He walked slowly down the aisle, eyes scanning the passengers like a market buyer inspecting goods. Nobody dared to touch him. Nobody dared to speak. He stopped near the middle of the bus and looked around, expression unreadable. Then he raised a hand and pointed at a man sitting near the back. "Come," he said quietly. The chosen man shook his head violently. "No, I no go anywhere." Two more figures entered the bus behind him. They didn't run, they didn't shout. They simply reached out and grabbed the man gently but firmly. He screamed as they dragged him toward the door. "Help me, driver, anybody!" No one moved. Fear had turned everyone into statues. The man's screams faded into the night as he was pulled outside. Silence returned. The first figure turned slowly toward the remaining passengers again. "Next," he said. That single word shattered the stillness. People rushed toward the back of the bus, pushing, crying, praying loudly. The driver laughed softly under his breath. Chike felt his pulse pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. "Think," he told himself. The message on his phone flashed again. "Don't come out." Not run, not hide. Don't come out. His eyes moved toward the front of the bus, toward the driver. The driver looked calm. Too calm, like someone who wasn't afraid of what stood outside. That meant something. Chike forced himself to stand slowly. The shadowy figure's eyes shifted toward him immediately. Cold, watching. Chike raised both hands slightly. "Driver," he said, voice shaking but loud enough. "Why you dey smile?" The driver didn't answer. Chike took a step closer. The air near the driver felt warmer than the rest of the bus. It was the only place that didn't carry that graveyard chill. That was when Chike understood something small but important. The driver wasn't a victim. He was safe, protected, maybe even part of this. "Driver," Chike said again, louder now. "Now you bring us come here." The bus went quiet.
The shadowy figure paused, listening. The driver turned his head slowly toward Chike, eyes glittering. For road, everybody must reach where them suppose reach. Before anyone could respond, a heavy knock landed from the darkness. Sirens. Faint at first, then louder. The figures outside froze. The shadowy man inside tilted his head, listening. Red and blue lights began flashing far down the road. Police sirens grew louder, cutting through the heavy silence like a knife. Chaos erupted instantly. The figures outside began retreating into the trees, melting into the darkness like smoke pulled by wind. The shadowy man inside hissed quietly and stepped backward toward the door. The driver's smile vanished. For the first time, his face showed fear. Headlights burst onto the road, bright and harsh. Police trucks screeched to a stop, officers jumping out with flashlights and rifles raised. "Stay where you are," a voice shouted. The shadowy figure stepped out of the bus just as the first beam of light hit the doorway. Officers rushed toward the bus. The passengers broke into cries and shouts, pressing against windows, banging on seats. The door flew open fully. Warm air rushed in. Real air. "Everybody calm down," an officer shouted. "You are safe now." Chike's knees weakened with relief. People stumbled out of the bus, crying, shaking, clinging to one another. Chike stepped onto the road and turned back. The abandoned bus that had blocked the road earlier was gone. Completely gone. Only empty darkness remained where it had stood. Police lights flashed across the driver's face as officers dragged him out in handcuffs. His earlier smile had faded into something hollow. "You think say road no dey talk?" he muttered quietly as they pulled him away. Chike watched in silence. He didn't understand everything that had happened. He only knew one thing. They had almost become the next boss. Hours later, as dawn crept slowly over the highway, the survivors sat wrapped in blankets near the police trucks. Some stared blankly into the distance. Some prayed softly. Chike looked at his phone. Full network bars. Messages flooded in from friends and family. He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he stared at the rising sun. The road looked normal again, just asphalt and dust and early morning light. But he knew that somewhere between Lokoja and Lagos, there was a place where buses don't always reach their destination. A place that waited patiently for the next set of travelers. Chike closed his eyes and whispered a quiet thank you. He had entered that night bus running away from a small fight. He stepped out of it understanding how close he had come to something far worse. Some shortcuts, he realized, were not roads. They were traps. And not everyone who boards a bus at night is meant to arrive.